She touched your face like she was tracing a memory that didn't belong to her. And for a moment, you believed you were known, not loved, not needed, known. But there was a tremor in her hands, wasn't there? As if your gentleness disgusted something ancient in her, something older than her name. You saw at once the way a wolf looks away when a lamb offers trust. Not out of mercy, out of boredom. You called it intimacy. She called it weakness. You keep remembering a moment that never happened. A night with no stars. A room where she looked at you like you were her savior, just before the silence swallowed the light. But the silence had teeth. You mistook surrender for devotion. But she was only waiting for the mask to slip, for the man to become God or beast. You became neither, and now she leaves, not in hate, not in fear, but in quiet contempt. This is not a story of betrayal. It is a ritual. A man offers love. A woman burns it, again and again, until he stops bleeding or starts laughing. You gave her what she didn't ask for. You placed your heart before her like a crown made of your own ribs, still warm, still trembling. You whispered promises you thought were sacred, because you meant them. Because men who love deeply always think their devotion is holy. But she didn't kneel. She smiled. And then she stepped over it, not with hatred, not with malice, but with the cold disinterest of a priestess who has long since forgotten the name of her god. You believed your honesty was power, that if you showed her everything, the raw need, the unsaid longing, the loyalty that bled at the edges, she would be moved. But she wasn't. She looked at you with those eyes that see too much and not enough. You were not a mystery to her. You were a wound trying to make itself beautiful, and that, more than anything, repelled her. She doesn't want your truth. She wants your edge, your chaos, the part of you that can walk away from her without dying, because it is only in that distance, in that refusal, that she can begin to feel desire. You thought your vulnerability would earn you love. You misunderstood. It only earns you reverence if you are already untouchable. You wrapped your love in tenderness. But she did not come for tenderness. She came for something more ancient, the thrill of conquest. The quiet thrill of watching a man unravel. Not because she is cruel, but because it proves her worth. And when you gave without being asked, when you gave before she earned it, she saw it not as generosity, but as weakness. This is the betrayal you cannot name, the one that doesn't look like betrayal at all. She doesn't lie, she doesn't cheat, she doesn't scream, she simply fades, grows distant, smiles less, forgets to ask how your day was. And when you confront her, she says nothing is wrong. That's the worst part of the silence. It drips slowly, like water on stone, eroding every part of you that once felt certain. And still, you stay. You think if you just love harder, stay softer, prove again and again that you are safe, she will finally see you. But what you don't understand is that safety is not erotic. Predictability is not magnetic. She wanted to want you, not to have you, and now that she has you, the hunger has gone. You became her mirror, not her mystery, and a woman cannot worship what she fully sees. You should have walked away when she first looked at you like a brother, when her kisses lost their fire, when your jokes started falling flat. But you stayed, and in staying, you told her something without words, that you would take whatever she gave, that your love had no requirements, that you would bleed until she remembered how to be kind. She won't, because you are now the man who gave too much. And once a woman has seen you sacrifice your dignity for a chance at her affection, she will never unsee it. You think this is harsh, you think this is unjust, but what if it isn't moral at all? What if it's primal? What if love, as you imagined it, never existed? Not in her, not in you, not in the world. What if every romance is a war of symbols, a struggle between strength and surrender, and you chose to die on your knees, calling it devotion, while she turned her back and searched for someone she could kneel before? You gave her the gift of your soul, but it was not wrapped in silence. It was not shrouded in mystery. It was not handed to her in pieces, with blood still drying on the edges. You gave it whole, too soon, too easily, and she could not bear it, because to love a man who loves her too much would require her to face the emptiness within herself. And she's not ready. She wants the man who pulls away, the man whose silence makes her ache, the one who never gives her the throne. So she spends her nights dreaming how to take it. That man she loves, that man she follows, that man she betrays too, but only after he's conquered her completely. You were never that man, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too much, too soon, too open. And in your openness, she saw herself reflected, all her fears, all her shame, all the things she never wanted to be seen. You didn't make her feel safe, you made her feel naked. And no woman forgives the man who sees her naked soul before she's ready to be seen. You thought you were giving her everything, but you were giving her the burden of being your world. And no one wants to be worshipped if they still doubt their own divinity. So she turned cold, pulled back, created distance where there had been none. And you, like a starving dog, mistook her retreat for a test, not a rejection. You begged without words. You waited like a ghost. You called it love. But what you didn't see, what you still don't want to see, is that she left the moment you made her your purpose, and she won't return, not to you, not to anyone who dares to love her more than she loves herself. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. She cannot carry what you gave her, because it was not love, it was surrender. And the moment you handed it over, you stopped being her lover. You became her captive. And who desires a captive? You keep asking what went wrong, but it was never about what you did. It was who you became. A man with no sharpness, no fire, no edge. A man whose soul was laid bare before she had the chance to ask for it. You thought that made you noble. But in the old world, the world before words, the man who offered his blood before battle was never crowned. He was buried. She didn't betray you. She couldn't. You had already betrayed yourself. And she only did what instinct demanded. She walked away from the altar you built in her name. Not because she hated you, but because she couldn't stand to watch you kneel. You mistook the offering of your soul for strength. You thought, if I give her everything, she will finally see me, finally stay. But love given too easily is never seen. And loyalty without demand is not loyalty, it is obedience. She did not betray you. She obeyed her nature. A woman cannot bow to a man who kneels first. You thought you were building a kingdom, but you sat on a throne of dust and called it devotion. You crowned yourself with your own longing. You made your hunger your identity. And she looked upon it not with cruelty, not even with pity, but with that slow, distant glance of someone staring at a cracked mirror. She saw what you could not, that you had abandoned yourself. You no longer held your center. You no longer held her attention. You were no longer the mountain. You had become the worshipper at its base. And in that shift, the ritual collapsed. There is something cruel in the way desire operates, not malicious, but indifferent. You offered her your future. She wanted your distance. You gave her your secrets. She wanted your absence. You gave her a ring. She wanted silence. You cannot love a woman by giving her everything. You can only love her by showing her that you need nothing, that you would still walk away, even if your bones trembled. But you did not walk away. You waited. You waited for a miracle, for a return, for a spark. You watched her change. Softer words turned to short replies. Kisses became chores. She flinched at your touch and called it stress. And still, you waited as if your patience would redeem you. It did not. She stayed, for a time, not out of love but out of inertia, because breaking things takes effort, because kindness held her a little longer than desire did, and you mistook that delay for love. You do not understand power. Power is not in how much you give. It is in what you withhold. The king is not loved because he kneels. He is loved because he never has to. And you, poor fool, dethroned yourself. You offered her the crown. You laid your scepter at her feet. And then you asked with trembling voice and wide eyes, "Do you still want me?" How could she? She cannot follow a man who needs to be followed. She can only follow the one who walks without looking back. You looked back. Every time she grew distant, you leaned closer. Every time she grew cold, you brought more warmth. Every time she pulled away, you offered her a map back to your heart. And in doing so, you taught her something you did not intend, that your love has no price. And what has no price has no value. She may have once loved you. That part is real. But the moment you placed her above yourself, that love began to rot. She did not leave you because you were too much. She left because you made her the center and forced her to carry the weight of your identity. No woman wants to be a man's reason for being. She wants to be the flame that dances near his fire, not the fire itself. She wants to be chosen by a man who doesn't need her, who can stand alone in silence and still burn. But you needed her too much. You made her presence your salvation. And so, she left to save herself. You wore your heart like a badge. You thought your pain made you deep. But what you didn't see is that your pain was her burden. Every tear, every plea, every carefully chosen word to show how deeply you cared, it all added to the weight. And one day, she dropped it. Not with anger, not with a scene, but with a shrug. You do not understand contempt until you've watched love turn into obligation, until you've seen desire fade, not because of betrayal, but because of your own softness. You begged for clarity. You asked, "What did I do wrong?" But there was no single moment, no fatal flaw, only 1,000 quiet abdications, 1,000 moments where you chose her approval over your own fire, 1,000 times you should have walked, but stayed, and each time, a little more of you disappeared. She didn't betray you. She outgrew the illusion that you were the man she met, the one with mystery, with edge, with pride. You were that man once, briefly, before you believed love meant sacrifice, before you traded your throne for her gaze. You thought love was worship, but worship is lonely, and no woman wants to sleep beside a ghost, even if it loves her. You turned your passion into prison bars. You made your love a performance. You smiled too much, agreed too often, gave too quickly. You became predictable, familiar, and then invisible. It's not that she wants pain, it's that she needs polarity. She needs the man who can say no, the man who vanishes without explanation, the man who isn't afraid of being unloved, because that man cannot be owned, and the one who cannot be owned becomes sacred. But you were always there, always waiting, always asking, "What can I do to fix this?" You became the beggar, and no woman dreams of kissing a beggar. So she found someone else. Or maybe she didn't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you gave her the throne and wondered why she spat on it. She didn't want to be queen. She wanted to be chosen by a king. A king does not offer his crown. He offers his presence, his silence, his indifference. And if she stays by choice, not because she's begged to. But you were never indifferent. You bled through every word. You tried to prove you were enough, and in doing so, you proved the opposite, that you didn't believe it. Now you sit on the throne alone, the crown sliding down your brow, asking why the kingdom is empty. But the answer is carved into the stone beneath your feet. You became the man who waits, the man who proves, the man who pleads. And no woman stays with that man, not because he is cruel, but because he has made her his god. And she never wanted to be worshipped. She wanted to be overwhelmed. You still don't understand what you saw in her. You say it was beauty, grace, laughter like water in your hands. But if you were honest, you'd admit it wasn't her you loved. It was the reflection she gave you, the man you felt like in her presence. Before the illusion cracked, you loved the myth of yourself that flickered behind her eyes. And when she turned away, you weren't just losing a woman. You were losing the version of you that only existed when she looked at you with wonder. That wonder was never real. It was hunger, yours and hers, dancing together, you craving redemption, she craving elevation. But hunger burns itself out. And when the fire dims, the truth appears in the cold ashes. She didn't betray you. She betrayed the image of you that you forced her to hold, the saint, the savior, the safe one, the soft one. No woman can carry that illusion forever. It becomes a burden, a quiet accusation. Why aren't you enough for my love to work? You made her your mirror and then resented her when she broke. Because the truth is, she was never divine. She was never your home. She was never your purpose. She was a woman afraid, searching, bleeding in silence just like you. But you needed her to be more. You needed her to be the one who would make your pain mean something. The one who would look at your wounds and say, yes, you are good. You are worthy. I will never leave. No one says that. Not for long. Because the more you ask someone to complete you, the more you dissolve in their eyes. She didn't leave because she hated you. She left because she saw what you refused to see, that your love was not freedom. It was a plea. You kept reaching. You kept asking, do you still see me? Am I still enough? And she looked at you like a stranger because she could no longer lie. She could no longer pretend you were the man she dreamed of. That man, if he ever existed, would never ask to be seen. He would never place his soul on trial. He would vanish into the smoke and only reappear when she remembered how to ache. That's the paradox, isn't it? She desires most the man who needs her least. Not because she wants to be abandoned, but because she wants to choose, to chase, to feel that she is worthy of him. You reversed the ritual. You made her the sun and yourself the earth. But the earth does not revolve around anyone. And so she left. Because no woman wants to be orbited forever. She wants gravity. She wants to fall. But you made falling impossible. You caught her too quickly. You held her too gently. You loved her like she was fragile. And in doing so, you shattered her. You think that if you had been colder, she would have left sooner. But that's not true. If you had been colder, she would have burned for you longer. If you had said no, she would have learned to kneel. If you had walked away, not to punish her, not to manipulate her, but because your soul demanded it, she would have followed. Not because you made her, but because her desire would have had something to cling to. You don't understand the hunger that lives in her. Not the hunger for safety, the hunger for awe, for danger, for tension, for that unbearable silence when she's unsure if she still has you. That's where her longing lives. That's where her femininity awakens. You wanted to be her home, but she wanted to be homeless, and to find you at the edge of the world. You became the man who reassured her, who held her when she cried, who never raised his voice, who asked permission, who waited for signs, who gave everything but mystery. You became the man she could rely on but never burn for. And the worst part is you knew. You felt the moment she stopped seeing you, the moment her hands on your skin became mechanical, the moment her texts grew short, the moment her laughter turned polite. You knew, but you refused to leave, because leaving would have meant admitting the truth that you were never truly chosen, only accepted. So you held on, and in holding on, you became small, smaller than you ever knew you could be. You stopped being a man. You became a plea with a heartbeat. She mirrored you. That's all she ever did. In the beginning, when you were untouchable, wild, unpredictable, she mirrored that. She chased it. She offered herself to it. But the moment you turned your wildness into worship, she had nothing left to reflect but her own fears. You want to blame her. You want to call her cruel. But the truth is more brutal than that she was loyal to the laws of desire. And those laws do not bend to virtue. They do not kneel before kindness. You were too good, too soon, too certain. And so she shattered the mirror, not to hurt you, but to be free. Because behind her eyes, you were no longer the man she wanted. You were the man who wanted her too much. And the more you wanted her, the more she disappeared, until you were alone holding the fragments of a myth you created. Now you stare into the void. You ask what lesson to take, but there is none. No moral, no tidy ending. Only this: you made yourself into something soft to be loved, and she left. You carved out your edges to make space for her, and she walked past. You bled where you should have burned. She was never the villain. You were never the victim. You were a man who believed love was enough, and she was a woman who needed a god. But gods don't beg. Gods don't wait. Gods don't write poems in the ashes. They burn. They vanish. They rise again. And you will rise too. But not by finding another woman to complete you. You will rise when you become the man no one dares betray. The man who carries silence like a sword. The man who walks away not to wound, but because he no longer begs to be seen. That man is still in you, but you buried him beneath softness, beneath sacrifice, beneath the need to be loved. Dig him out. Let the mirror break. Let the myth die, because only then will they see you. Only then will you. She stands by the window now, where once you waited. The wind moves her hair, but not her thoughts. Somewhere, she remembers your hands, not their warmth, but their certainty, before they began to tremble. The echo of your name is not spoken aloud, only stirred like smoke in the lungs of memory. And in the mirror, for a brief second, she sees you again, not the man you became, but the shadow of the man you refused to be. Would she have stayed if you had walked away first? Would she have broken if you had been unbreakable? These questions do not want answers. They want to linger like perfume on an empty coat, like footsteps in snow that never melt, like a crown left behind in a burned chapel. Not every fire needs to be remembered, but some do not die.